Okay, this is a first. I've never done this before, that is, filming a video anyways. I'm going to show how we make captured rings. The object is to make a baby rattle out of this piece of cherry. This is a piece of cherry that a friend of mine gave me, and his son and wife are having a baby in a few months. So I thought it would be good to make a rattle out of some of the cherry that my friend gave me. First thing we're going to do is to mark the center, and this is a center finder. I'm going to mark the center of this so that we can mount on the lathe between centers, and we will turn between centers just until I can get a lip on here, a collar on here for the chuck. Okay, now that we have that, I'm going to just get started with the drive center here, so I'll put that right in the middle and give that a couple of whacks, so that'll give it a nice spot there for the drive. And likewise you can use either, but we're just going to put a little dent in here for the tailstock. Okay. Okay, now I have my drive center loaded in the lathe and my tail center, and I've got my piece set up here. So we will put this in and advance the tailstock. Lock that in place, and we're ready to go. Now, a couple of safety items, which is pretty typical. Make sure that your tool rest is set up and it clears, rotating that slowly. Turn your lathe speed down, and we're ready to go. I'm going to start off with it's a spindle roughing gouge. We'll start with that. We'll get this turned round and then we'll get on to making the rattle. Start off at a slow speed. Whoop. Making a little progress. It's knocked the edges off anyways. Another tool that you can use with this is one of my favorite tools, is this bowl gouge. This is a large bowl gouge. It's also great for just simply turning cylinders or otherwise. So I move my tool rest a little bit closer. You don't want to be too extended over there. And I'll turn the speed up just a skosh. And we just come in here, find the edge, and you can see it takes a beautiful cut. It cuts a lot nicer when you're not cutting on 4 distinct edges. So let's get this turned around. Another tool that you could use is this Easy Wood tool. I picked this up a while ago. It's simply a carbide tip, and it's really just a scraper. You just simply plunge So set it on the rest and in you go. Okay, so that's that tool. You can see how easily that turns. Very nice smooth cylinder. I mean, there's plenty of options. We have a nice bidan here that we made at our woodworking guild. The bidan just plunges in. Actually, I'll use this now because I want to turn the end of this with a rabbet on here like this, but sized so that it will fit into this 4-jaw chuck. I have a little cheat sheet here where I know that the depth or the width of this rabbet needs to be between these two cutouts in order for it to be properly sized to fit that chuck. So let me just turn this end down a little bit. And again, it's a straight plunge cut. I know you can't see that, but just a little more. I always like to try to cut a little bit on the large end so we get a little bigger wheelbase and a little better support. Okay. Alright, we can take this off. Remove the drive center. And mount the chuck. And that's that rabbet right there, just cut. So it's got a lip, and actually what's interesting is the shoulder of the chuck actually rests on this surface. You don't want this part resting on the flat bottom, because if this is out of square, it'll knock your whole cylinder out of square. This collar piece, you've just turned it so it's perpendicular to the axis, and that's what actually rests on your chuck here. So we'll tighten this up. Remember, with these chucks, it's not righty-tighty. They're left-handed threads. Don't ask me why. I always go around and just do it a few times. Nice and snug. If I remember, I'll check it again in a few minutes. It's a good thing to do to make sure it doesn't loosen up. And I'll turn the speed down once again and just check that. Yep, that looks nice. Running pretty good. Okay, the next thing I'll do is I'll adjust the belt. I'm just going to adjust the belt so that I can get a little higher speed out of this. So we'll go down to the center wheel here. And there. And turn speed down. And now I've got a higher speed that I can turn. Alright, let's bring this down to a little smaller diameter, and then we'll lay out exactly what we're going to do with the rattle and the captured rings. So a little bit more turning here, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, even though we have this on the chuck, and let me, as I said I was going to do, let me recheck this tightness. It's usually you can get a little more out of it after you've turned it a little bit. And although it's running out quite nicely, and you can see it's well supported, because I'm going to be working out on the ends, it's just nice to always keep the tailstock engaged anyways. So there's no reason to remove that until you're ready to finish the end. Another tool that we can use for cylinders is called a skew. It's really a pretty difficult tool to use in my mind because it is very easy to catch an edge, and when you get a catch with this, it can be disastrous for your work and your health. So the trick is to just, as all tools, just bring it back, find the bevel and draw it back, and you'll be able to cut. And you'll get a tremendously nice finish with this type of a tool. And you can see that. Don't even need to sand it. It's a beautiful finish. I'm just doing that for example because I'm still not down to the diameter that I want for this rattle. I don't really have anything in mind. Just about yay big. So that's the plan. Okay, we're just going to go a little bit smaller in diameter, and then we'll be ready to turn the rattle. Okay, we'll call that good. Now I'm going to begin to shape the end of the rattle. Close enough. Okay, now we can begin our captured rings. I don't have any set dimensions for these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make 3 rings, which is advisable because if you break one, you have 2 left. I think you want at least 2 on a rattle. You could do 1 too, I suppose, but I don't know. I'm going to make 3. Probably about 1/4 of an inch wide. So we'll mark that, a little wider perhaps. Okay. So we'll mark another one, and we'll mark a 3rd. Try to get them pretty close anyways. Okay, you'll notice I changed my tool rest here. I just didn't need that long one anymore, and it would have had more of a difficulty getting closer to the workpiece. All I have in my hand here is just a cutoff tool, and you can get fancy shaped hooked tools and whatnot to cut round rings. I don't use them. Just worked it out a way to just do it with a cutoff tool. So all we're going to do is we're going to plunge in here. To about the diameter of the shaft that I want. And we are just going to round over this edge with a spindle gouge. Again, ride the bevel, take the cut. You can also use it like a scraper. Okay, and we're going to start cutting our captured. I had to change cameras here. The other camera was just eating batteries. So now we're ready to start our captured ring, and all I'm going to do is just dive in at the sides and make it round. So you can see I'll start here. This might be difficult with the camera. You can do a little bit of shaping of the ring as well as you go around. Alright, we'll see if we can get this thing off here. There it is. And it's amazing. You can just sit here and turn that ring right on there. Now you can see the if you will, burrs or cut off or whatever inside that ring. We'll take care of that later. We'll do a little sanding. I learned a trick last couple of times I made captured rings that I'll show you. Now it's really not necessary, but what some people will do, I think, I don't know, is just to tape this up, tape this back out of the way, which you're certainly welcome to do. The laws say I don't really find it necessary. And we're on to the next ring. Again, plunge cuts on the side. One thing I forgot to do actually was to sand the outside first. Not sure why I forgot that. I'll turn my speed down, move this out of the way, and just give it a light touch here. Yeah, that's a 180 grit, so that's fine. I really wish I hadn't forgotten that on that one. It's just going to be more difficult to sand by hand. And ready. It's a little difficult getting this angle because I don't want to block the camera. And the other, you can make these rings further apart too, as I said in the beginning. It might have been a little bit close. It just makes it more challenging to get in here. And there we go. That's number 2. And we'll go for 3. Well, it looks like I did a pretty good job turning the outside of that ring, so there's not too much sanding to be had. A little bit to catch up with that, but I'll just go over this lightly. Let me smooth up that shaft a little more, and then I'll show you the trick to sanding the inside. Alright, I am now going to hook up my homemade dust collector. Works pretty well. Put that there. Put that right on there. It's adjustable. Bring it right up. Now it's going to get loud. So the trick is to cut this piece of sandpaper and lay it in here. It doesn't have to be this long. Let's make it a little bit easier on ourselves. Make it a little bit easier on myself. So we're just going to wrap this around. And secure it with a little piece of tape. I think I've got, it's either 60 or 80 grit on there. That's fine, that's not going anywhere. And away we go. You really don't have to worry about these breaking. I've actually don't think I've ever broken one. I must say though, I am a little disappointed in the quality of the texture on these sides. I got a lot of grain tear out there, which is too bad, but it is what it is. So I can't believe I used to actually sand these by hand. I would get sandpaper in there and scuff my knuckles and sand and pull, and this is much easier. Okay, let's change out that sandpaper to something a little bit less aggressive. And voila, there's 3 captured rings. Now we'll just finish the rattle up. So I realized, learn something new every day, right? What I should have done for this tear out was I should have sanded the entire, this is what I usually do, I don't know what I was thinking, but before the ring actually parts off the shaft, all right, when it's down to just a thin layer, you can actually sand the entire ring, you know, sides and everything, and so then you really only got to just dress up the inside like I was doing. So hey, lesson learned. Okay, and on to finish this. Okay, so the trick then is going to be get both balls to match, both sides. Let's check the diameter here and see what I have. Okay, so I've got a little bit to take off of there. Okay, I'm going to remove this for now, and I'm going to sand all of it down to 180. I'm going to go to 400 on it. I'm also going to turn the lathe speed down. You really should have a slower speed for sanding. Okay, now I'm going to part off the end. We'll see how that's done. The reason why, again, I kept it there for so long was just for stability. I really could just take a cut-off tool and cut off that end also. A little bit of coarse paper. Now, because this is a baby's rattle, I'm debating on a finish. A salad bowl finish would be quite durable, but I think I'm just going to use mineral oil. So I did go back and sand the edges of these rings. Looks a little better, looks a lot better. So now the rings are not, I put this cloth on to protect the shaft so I didn't dent it. So as a wood turning friend once said, it's not a defect, it's a feature. So now the rings are not all the same width. This had a lot more to come off the sides. And they're a little squared off on the edges, but as I say, it's not a defect, it's a feature. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put some of that mineral oil on here. This is just CVS laxative mineral oil, so it's edible, so it won't hurt, you know, for the baby. So it's an edible type finish. Don't have to worry about you know, varnishes or shellacs or anything. This is the same thing you can use on your cutting boards. Spruce them up a little bit, keep them oiled. Okay, a final part, and I can sand the parted edge and finish it, and then we're done. Because this is the same parting tool that I used and it had a lot of tear out on that end grain, I'm going to go back here a bit further, and I'll just have to work the nub off of the end. That way I won't risk tearing out a piece at the end of the ball. Well, I ran out of disc space on that, but the end, I just parted it, reached over, parted it, and then it just falls off. And so I have this little bit of a nub on the end, and just going to sand that off. Here it is after 80 grit. So I don't know if that's in focus. And there you go. That's how I make captured rings.